Welcome back, and today we're gonna talk about none other than R.K. Narayan, Malgudi, and the middle class Indian life. So, ever heard of Malgudi? Yes, you might have, but it's not a real place, you should know that. But to Indian fiction, it's home. R.K. Narayan made it up. A small South Indian town filled with ordinary people and their lives. He gave us stories that felt real, like they could happen right next door. So his first novel, Swami and Friends, 1935. Then came the Bachelor of Arts. Then the English Teacher. Together they form what? A Malgudi trilogy, and that was actually asked in your exam. So we have then the guide, a tourist guide who accidentally becomes a spiritual leader, funny, strange, deep, all at once, and that's what Narayan's magic, right? So it wasn't like a drama or politics all the time. It was the small stuff like tea stalls, schoolboys nagging about their school's failed poet, all these things, right? Life as we know it. So some call him, India's Faulkner, but in a kind of South Indian vibe. But really, he was just Narayan. He made the ordinary feel unforgettable. You have made it when your imagination town feels more than, real than your own, and that's Malgudi, and that's R.K. Narayan. In 1960, he won the Sahitya Academy Award for what? The Guide, and this was actually asked in the exam as well. Then came the Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, you name it, all kind of award he got it, and he also got even a seat in the Rajya Sabha because when Narayan spoke through fiction, India listened, right? Then his stories went everywhere, and the best part, he didn't need big cities or big tragedy. He had what? Malgudi, and through that small town he held the biggest truth. And even Salman Rushdie, said what? Malgudi feels more real than most real places, and if that's not storytelling, what it is? So the Malgudi trilogy we're going to talk about right now, and that include Swami and Friends, the Bachelor of Arts, and the English Teacher. So to the world of Swami and Friends, there is a 10-year-old Swaminathan. Okay, just wants to play cricket, skip school, and hang out with his buddies. But it's life, right? It's not that simple. He gets expelled, loses his friends, and slowly grows up. And while Gandhi's non cooperation movement buzzes in the background, that's the genius of Narayan, right? He doesn't, shout politics, he whispers it, through the eyes of a child, and especially this one. So, was his first novel, this particular Swami and Friends, published in 1935, and with the help of none other than Graham Greene, the British novelist who backed Narayan's life, a kind of true mentor to him. Right, and it was asked in your exam as well. So Malgudi isn't just a town; it's a feeling, and this book is where it all began. So after Swami, Narayan gives us Chandran, a fresh college graduate in the Bachelor of Arts, smart, sensitive, and lost. He falls in love and wants to marry Malati. But guess what? The stars don't align literally. Rejected over astrology, and that kind of thing also asked in the exam, right? Especially the character. So Chandran disappears into sannyas and only to come back, marry someone else, and figure life out quietly. Then comes the English Teacher, and things get a little bit deeper. We meet Krishna, a lecturer. He's got a calm life until his wife Sushila dies. It's heartbreaking, but also beautiful because Krishna slowly finds her again, not in this world, but in his spirit. Narayan shifts here from playful to philosophical, from external struggles to inner healings, and through it all, Malgudi breathes beneath the pages, familiar, eternal. Then we have The Dark Room, which was published in 1938. So remember that before feminism had a label in Indian fiction, R.K. Narayan gave us The Dark Room. So meet Savitri, a housewife living in Malgudi, trapped in silence and married to Ramani, cold, controlling, and cheating guy. When Savitri finds out about his affair, she breaks, walks out, even tries to end it all, but she survives works at a temple, tastes some freedom just for a moment. Then, what happened, comes a kind of different twist. Her kids pull her back and she returns, not with a joy, not in defeat, but with a kind of quiet knowing. This wasn't one of Narayan's lightest story. It's raw, you know, and still stillness that speaks. And Savitri, she may not scream, but she resists. Subtle, brave, unforgettable. So R.K. Narayan's post-independence fiction that was asked in your exam. So whatever the novels was published after post-independence. So post-independence, Narayan didn't leave Malgudi, right? But the stories, they grew kind of deeper. In Mr. Sampath, the printer of Malgudi, two men chase a dream. There was Srinivas, the calm editor, and then Sampath, the flashy printer. It was asked in your exam, and this guy was from newspaper to movies. Things spiral fast, fame, ego, failure, and in the end, Srinivas goes back to his roots. Sampath doesn't. It's soft satire, but it hits here, right? So then we have financial expert, and there we have character, Magya, a money man under a banyan tree, giving advice, chasing wealth, losing himself. He rises fast, banking, printing, corruption. But the higher he climbs, what happens? The harder he falls. And Narayan doesn't judge, he just shows, greed, hope, fragility, all in one man. This was Narayan shift. Humor, yes, but now with a mirror held closer to the soul. So imagine falling in love right in the middle of revolution. That's actually what waiting for the Mahatma. There is a character, Sri Ram, a confused young man, Bharati, a fierce activist, and yes, Gandhi himself is in the mix, right? So, but Narayan doesn't idolize him there, right? Gandhi's presence is real, grounded, not divine, just human. Sri Ram stumbles through politics, gets involved with extremists, and watches history unfold. Partition, assassination, pain, and Narayan's rare brush with national trauma. And it's quite but kind of sharp. Then comes The Guide, his masterpiece, where he won, Sahitya Academy Award. There is a character Raju, a smooth talking tour guide. He falls for a dancer Rosie, fakes being a spiritual guru, and ends up becoming one at the end, right? So his he fasts for rain and collapses, and the sky finally breaks. Redemption, illusion, you decide whatever, right? And that's a kind of work. The Guide is the layered, powerful, unforgettable, and that the ending of this work has been asked in the exam. So what happens when a monster moves into your attic? That's the heart of man eater of Malgudi. There is a character Nataraj. He's a quiet printer, loves peace, poetry, painting, printing. Then comes Vasu, a loud, violent, guy. All ego is not just bad as your neighbor. It's a metaphor. And Narayan draws from the myth of Bhasmasur that was actually asked in your exam. So the demon who destroys himself with his own power, and that's exactly what happens. Vasu goes too far and collapses under the weight of his own arrogance. And it's not a thriller; it's a fable. And the message: you don't need to roar to be strong. Sometimes, silence outcasts the storm. So Narayan proves again ordinary people, quite, values, and, can still win, Then we have at the end later fiction, like what happens when tradition meets a rebellion and in the same living room. So that's the vendor of sweets. So there is a character Jagan who's also a Gandhian and runs a sweet shop, lives simply, but his son Mali, all Western swagger, zero roots, they clash, not with shouting, but with silence, distance, disappointment, and in the end, Jagan lets go, not just of Mali, but of the world. And he chooses what? Renunciation, quietly, no drama. So then comes we have the painter of science. There is a character Raman. It was asked in your exam, who's a bachelor, a sign painter, falls for Daisy, a birth control campaigner at that time. very strong and progressive, and emotionally unavailable also. So it's not just romance, it's a conflict and between desire and belief. So emotion and ideology, Narayan again proves his magic. Big questions, small towns and characters who feel real. So just imagine, what if a tiger told you it's, a life story? That's Narayan in his experimental era. So in a tiger for Malgudi, a wild beast, meets a monk and transform. What he did, he renounces all violence. It's wild, but also deeply, spiritual. So then there is another work, Talkative Man, where a bored journalist, a stranger from Timbuktu, in a small town caught off guard by global weirdness, Narayan pokes fun at diplomacy, ambition, and sleepy towns that hate change, all this stuff, right? Then we have the world of Nagaraj, a man who loves routine. Until his rebellion's nephew shows up, chaos follows, and maybe that's the point. Disruption wakes you up sometime, right? So, and finally, we have another work, Grandmother's Tale. His, most personal work, a real story, passed down of a woman searching for her vanished husband. It's a folklore, memory, truth, all woven together. And even in his final works, Narayan, stays true to his gift, finding magic in the ordinary. Right. What I would call him, he's a Dickens, for us, Charles Dickens. Anyway, let's talk about short fiction. And, not every great story needs a 300 pages sometime, right? Sometime it only takes what? 3 pages. And R.K. Narayan short story is like that. Tiny windows, into big truth. And Malgudi Days, that's a crown jewel out there. So there is a short story called an astrologer's day. A common man, common gets called out by fate. Then there is another short story, The Martyr's Corner. A food vendor's peace is crushed by politics. Simple setup, but deep cut. Then there is The Tiger's Claw, told by Narayan's Chatterbox, The Talkative Man. It's wild, funny, little absurd, and still somehow real. And we have another, A Horse and Two Goats, that was asked in your exam, where an Indian villagers and American tourists, zero common language, but the miscommunication, pure gold. Then his final tale, Under the Banyan Tree, about a storyteller who goes silent, feels like a farewell, quite and profound. So Narayan didn't just build Malgudi; he gave it a life, one short story at a time. So there was some critical reception and also legacy of R.K. Narayan. So what did the critic really think of R.K. Narayan? Well, let's start with legends like Graham Greene, E.M. Foster, Somerset Maugham. All loved him, and Green even called him India's Chekhov, and that was asked in your exam as well. So, uh, Narayan's style was simple on the surface but deep underneath, and compassionate realism, as Anita Desai, put it. And some compared him to Faulkner, and some, even to Dickens, like me, right? So big names and big praise he got. So writers like Sashi Tharoor and Shashi Deshpande felt a little bit negative about his work, like his works was too soft, too safe, maybe even emotionally limited. Still, others pushed back, like critics like William Walsh and Wyatt Mason said, look closer. His clarity is it's a mask. Beneath it, quite existential, depth rooted in Hindu thought. Then there is Malgudi, a town more real than most real places, we feel. And it's a kind of literary genius, isn't it? So, let's talk about themes in R.K. Narayan fiction. It's very important because sometime it asks in your exam as a statement wise, right? So, ordinary lives, moral struggle, and philosophical undertone. R.K. Narayan didn't shout his themes, right? He whispered them through everyday peoples. Let's start with gender. In the dark room, Savitri walks out of her home. quite rebellion against patriarchy. And The Painter of Science, where Daisy flips the script, a bold birth control advocate in conservative Malgudi, subtle but very powerful. Then there is a grief and love. You can see that in the English teacher, where Krishna, broken, lost, connecting with his dead wife, masculine pain and laid bare. Then, if you talk about caste, then we have a martyr's corner, the astrology days, just trying to live. The guide, we have it's soaked in Gandhian ideas. Actually, caste is not there in the any theme, but Gandhian theme is there. Especially in the Gandhi, in the guide work. So it's kind of service, renunciation, spiritual transformation, and waiting for Mahatma is important. And his most direct dive into the freedom struggle. But again, here's the twist: he ends with his stillness. Then there is a work, A Tiger for Malgudi Under the Banyan Tree, full of Buddhist calm, Vedantic depth. In every story, Narayan shows up the same truth. Even, small lives carry big meaning. So that was all about his theme. Now, let me tell you all of his major work in chronological order. That's what exactly asked in your exam. So here is the whole list that you can have a look, and we'll create what all the codes and everything, whatever is needed to remember all the work. But before that, I want you to take a pause and note two important dates. 1935, first published work, Swami and Friends, and then the last 1994, Grandmother's Tale, his last work, kind of novella. So that's nearly 60 years of writing, right? Sounds like a lot, right? But don't worry, we'll break it down using the first, middle and last formula that we always use. So first work, you can put Swami and Friends, and then you'll put the code, then the middle and the other. So the code one that I have created personally, you can also create on your own. So here is the code: Swami and my friends, I did pursue Bachelor of Arts, and in the dark room, our English teacher taught us a short story called Malgudi Days. So in that way, you can remember, the work like Swami and Friends, The Bachelor of Arts, The Dark Room, Malgudi Days, and The English Teacher, right? So here you can see we have second code. Mr. Sampath is a financial expert who's waiting for the Mahatma for a guidance. Simple, it covers, Mr. Sampath, the printer of Malgudi, the financial expert waiting for Mahatma, and the guide. See, a lot of things has covered here. Now you can put in the middle work, the man eater of Malgudi, 1961. This will be your middle anchor here. So later you can put another code, that is a man eats sweets in Malgudi, where they saw a painting of a tiger, and one man is talking to Nagaraja about it, and who is a friend of my grandmother's. So in that way you can recall all the work: the man eater of Malgudi, the vendor of sweets, the painter of science, a tiger from Malgudi, talkative man, and the world of Nagaraj and Grandmother's Tale. So in that way, you can remember all of the work. So last work we have Grandmother's Tale, right? 1992. So quick recap formula for you is that you just put first work, Swami and Friends, and the last one, Grandmother's Tale, and in the middle you can put the man eater, Malgudi, whatever you think is easy to recall. So all in that way you can remember all of the work, and actually that's where you get one question at least, not direct question from RK Narayan, especially about maybe his characters chronological order, or maybe his work chronological order. So all these things are important, and sometime about his life, and all the when he won the Padma Bhushan award, or Sahitya Academy Award for which work. So there will be like 5 statements, and you have to answer. And if you have just watched this lecture, this session, then it's completely easy for you. You can just get full marks from RK Narayan. So that's all, guys. And in our next session, we're gonna take maybe Bhattacharya, or maybe we can just move on to Raja Roy, or we'll see. Anyway, thank you so much, and I'll see you in our next session. So bye bye.